It's amazing when your child is handed a life-threatening diagnosis, how your picture of the life you have for them changes. As I handed him to his anesthesiologist, he was wrapped up in his Minky blanket, and it just felt like a way to say that it's okay, Max. You can be brave. It's going to be okay. A few hours after Max was born, he started developing jaundice. And as his hepatologist told me that he had biliary atresia, all I could feel was terror. And there was nothing I could do to take it away from him. Biliary atresia is where the bile ducts coming out of the liver are either malformed or absent. So when the bile sits in the liver, it basically ruins your liver. So if biliary atresia goes untreated, it is 100% fatal by the age of 2. He kept getting more and more jaundiced. He wasn't able to tolerate his bottles anymore. He was throwing up a lot and he really wasn't growing. So when Max was 13 and a half months old, he was placed on the waiting list for a liver transplant. Trevor and I had always known that if Max were to need a liver transplant, that we would pursue having Trevor worked up as a living donor. The thought of my husband and my son undergoing major surgery at the same time was pretty terrifying to me. Max's grandma had given him a Minky blanket when he was, a tiny baby, and he loved laying on that and running his fingers through it and just feeling the softness of it. And so when we packed his transplant bag, the very first thing that went in there was a Minky blanket. On June 9th, 2020, my son Max and my husband Trevor were admitted to Primary Children's Hospital. I handed Max to his anesthesiologist, which is probably one of the hardest things you ever have to do as a parent. I take kids back to the OR all the time as I work as an anesthesiologist, but my perspective definitely changed that day as I handed my son to someone that I had to put all my trust in. After Max went back to the OR, I walked back to Max's room, knowing that my husband was in one OR and my son was in the other. And I don't think I've ever had a panic attack in my life, but I felt like I couldn't breathe. I felt like my heart had been ripped in two. When I walked into Trevor's ICU room and saw him for the first time after surgery, I just remember this intense wave of gratitude that he was willing to literally sacrifice his own body for his son. When they finally were done with Max's transplant, I could not wait to see him. And as I walked into his room and there were tubes and monitors, I could just sit there and hold his hand and tell him that I was there with him. And everything just felt like it was gonna be okay. And as I carried his Minky blanket to him in the ICU and I covered him with it, it became Max's safe space. He knew that under his Minky blanket, there were no pokes or tests or people touching him. He could lay under that blanket and feel safe. I woke up one morning and Max was laying sideways in his crib under his Minky blanket with his foot sticking up on the railing. And I remember in that moment thinking, okay, I think we have turned a corner. He just looked finally peaceful. And it was really just a calming moment in my heart to know it's gonna be okay. Max is an amazing toddler. He's the most determined kid you will ever meet in your entire life. Every night, Max goes to bed with his Minky blanket and he tucks it underneath the sheets so that it's right against his body and so that he can feel that soft Minky right against him. There was a time that I didn't know that I would be able to watch Max grow up and run and play and wrestle with his siblings. After watching the process that Max went through, we have a newfound appreciation for life and even the little things that we see every day. Watching Max be able to run and jump and climb, everything has become miraculous in our eyes. I think it's absolutely amazing to look at the two of them together. And, on the surface, they just look like a dad and a son, but I get to know the special connection they have, that Trevor was able to give his liver to Max, and that a piece of Trevor truly lives on in Max. So it's really through kind of the miracle of organ donation that Max has been able to become who he is now.